All right, so I had put up this post on August 25th. The post says, keep an eye on geopolitical news from England and Spain as it relates to America. The reason I put up those two particular countries is when I'm looking at news, everything that I look at from a news, breaking news, developing story, whatever you want to call it, I filter through prophecy, right? 95% of what I post is news, which is always filtered through prophecy. I believe that the Most High God's word is true. It won't come back void. So I don't have to make up my own prediction on what's going to happen. He's just giving me an ability to see the prediction through the news. And that's what I've always done. I stick to that game plan, right? So we've seen we've seen France and the United States in the news, of course, a lot. The U.S. is always in the news, but France has always been in the news for kind of throwing the monkey wrench in the NATO game plan, not always being in alignment with the United States over the last like 2 years. Now, I'm filtering this through Zechariah chapter 1, right? Zechariah chapter 1 talks about that there were four horns, right? A horn is a strength or a power. It also represents, if you look at like ancient altars had four horns around the altar, right? So that's like the strength, ultimately the power structure of a kingdom or a nation of people, if you want to say, right? So these four horns, through history and archaeology and just looking at, the things that have happened in prophecy, would be France, England, the United States, and Spain. So you may say, well, how do we know that those four countries are those four horns? Well, it says that those four horns are the ones that scattered Judah, right, in Israel. They scattered and put the tribes in slavery. This was the last major captivity. So when we look at the transatlantic slave trade, which was a slave trade that happened, a triangular trade happened across the water of the Atlantic and back across to Europe and so forth and so on. When we look at this, those were the countries that played the most prominent role in that slave trade, right? So we can pinpoint who those four horns are based upon that. Now, when we get into what's happening with those four horns, it says that they're going to be frayed. That word for frayed in the Hebrew is just going into making afraid, right? They're ultimately being put in a situation where they're uncomfortable, right? They're afraid to do certain things because of what it says these four carpenters are going to do to them. The carpenters are the ones who are going to fray them, right? A carpenter doesn't just build things, a carpenter also dismantles things. So in this case, these four carpenters are dismantling this power structure. The four carpenters would be the brick, right? Started as the brick, went to the BRICS, and then the BRICS Plus. So that's Brazil, Russia, India, and China. So when we look at what has been happening in Ukraine, Russia has the entire Europe, all the European nations afraid. Russia has made them pay attention. They understand that Russia has natural resources, natural gas that heats a lot of their countries. But they're looking at it, the Europeans look at it from the standpoint of, man, the United States of America is sitting across the Atlantic Ocean. We got to deal with this dang old monster right in our backyard. So they're paying close attention. The U.S. is moving in a pattern that they're trying to come out of the Ukraine war. They're trying to stop putting all their money and funds. So what's happening is that this is a fraying of this power structure. So the way that this would work is that you would start to see things between the United States, Spain, France, and Britain, and you would start to see a little bit of a I guess if you want to say, disagreements, as far as how to move forward in these different geopolitical spheres, right? So that's what we see right now. We've seen it with France. France has been the one saying, hey, we need to quit relying on the United States. We need our own military in Europe. We're not and just outside of NATO, right? We can see Great Britain had already started doing certain things to kind of remove themselves out of like the European Union, and just to make sure that they're kind of shielding themselves from so much, if you want to say, the blame or the focus coming from Russia, right? And the UK, their economy over the last, if you look on August 26th, or excuse me, on August 28th, I stated that the UK economy is now in major trouble. It's on the teeter to crash, just like the United States economy is kind of teetering on a crash. So, and they have other political issues going on also. So that came out. Now we have Spain. Spain is in a disagreement with Israel now. You have to understand that Israel and the United States are one. They're not separate. Israel and the United States will win together and lose together, right? They are one. So Spain doesn't like the fact that Israel conducted those airstrikes on the Hamas leadership in Qatar, and Spain has major issues because of that happening, right? And there's other things that are coming out as it relates to Spain too, but that's the big piece currently with Spain. So as of right now, things are moving in that direction, and we can see that prophecy is moving forward, because now we have the other two horns that are now being put into the news in direct conflict with the other horns. That's the point. So that's how I filter, the news through prophecy, through the Bible. But just got to keep our eyes peeled. The Most High can always slow things down or speed things up, but as a servant, this is what I know I'm supposed to be doing. This is what certain brothers, this is our lot, to give this information, to give this warning, so we know what times that we're in, right? So keep your house in order, right? Things will continue to progress, because as that's happening, things are going to progress in Babylon, aka America. You're going to get more economic talk, more talk on the economy, potential market crashes, the dollar and the debt. You're going to get all these things are together, because all these things are happening at one time at the end, which is what it tells us through prophecy. This is how we know what times that we're in. It's just a matter of whether the Most High speeds it up or slows it down. The more we prophesy these things and we see them, because it tells us in the book of Daniel chapter 12 that knowledge will increase. Everybody does not have 100% of all the breakdowns. All breakdowns are important. We got to understand that, right? Revelation 19:10, the spirit of Yahushua, the spirit of Jesus, is the spirit of prophecy, right? If you keep commandments, you're going to be wanting to understand prophecy. So we got to keep the commandments. We got to have faith. And then in turn, we got to be monitoring the things that are going on, so we're not caught off guard when it's all said and done. So hopefully that helps you to understand sometimes why I put certain posts up. I'll try to do more elaborating on some of these posts. Sometimes it just may take a little bit of time, and sometimes I want you to do a little work on your own or just ask the questions. So, shalom.